Now, how many couples do you know that pretend that everything is okay or even great in their relationship when in fact it is anything but? Granted, there are a lot of rational sounding reasons for maintaining this pretense. Protecting the kids, not hurting each other's feelings, or avoiding the financial and emotional uncertainty that can come with a breakup. Nevertheless, relationship pretense really fools no one. Not our close friends, not our kids, and deep down, not even ourselves. And as a strategy for coping and staying together, it is doomed to fail almost every time. I'm not sure why, but Friday evenings after a great night out seems to bring forth a rather curious impulse in my life partner. She has this way of casually mentioning things that often leave me somewhat flummoxed and my ego crushed, at least momentarily anyway. For example, one night we were reminiscing about a 4-day music festival we attended a couple years ago, and how during one of the bigger acts she looked over at me and thought I had the most handsome face in the world. And just as my chest was heaving ardently skyward, she went on to wonder out loud why she hadn't recognized that fact earlier in our relationship. Never having learned to leave well enough alone, I asked my first stupid follow-up question. Well, did you not find my face attractive before then? And her response was, I loved your eyes and your mouth. Okay, but what did you think about my whole face before then? Not so much, but I do now. Ouch. Though it took about an hour for me to nurse my ego back to a semblance of healthy self-confidence again, I realized some very important insights as a result of our exchange. First of all, neither she nor I were what you would call head over heels for each other when we first met. We started out as friends before we became romantically involved. While we both found each other interesting, there was not really an immediate strong physical attraction on either side. Secondly, and far more importantly from my perspective, her willingness to be absolutely authentic in her thoughts and feelings is an immensely refreshing departure from my previous relationships. Sure, her forthrightness hurt my ego, but it also bolstered my confidence in knowing I can always count on her to be honest and authentic. The reality is, she's the kind of woman that simply would not stick around if she was not truly attracted to her mate. And since I've learned to separate my ego from my heart, these brief and somewhat painful episodes of authentic sharing can be taken in stride and used to further strengthen our bond. One of the many surprising things I've learned from our relationship is that the longer we're together, the more beautiful and attractive we appear to each other. Even after several years, when I look at her face, I am almost overwhelmed by her beauty, inside and out. And I know she feels the same way about me. Ironically, though, I believe this happens because of our authentic communication and not allowing an ounce of pretense to enter into our lives. For many people, relationship pretense starts the moment they first meet. It's almost a cliche how both parties put on their best side to maximally enhance their ability to appear attractive, physically, emotionally, intellectually, and so on. Unfortunately, because the way we are wired as human beings with an ego that incessantly demands attention, this is a surefire recipe for eventual relationship failure. And the reason is really very simple. Deep down, most of us have a highly refined and intuitive truth detector. The only thing is, it has a very quiet voice, one that is easily drowned out by the strident needs of the ego to feel accepted, loved, and even taken care of. When I asked my first wife to marry me 30 years ago, we both knew that we were far from perfect for each other. Though she was and still is a wonderful, nurturing woman who would be and is an incredible mother to our kids, we were hardly an ideal match. Likewise, she saw my intensity and drive for success to be an attractive quality in terms of supporting our future family, but also knew it would eventually be a source of discontent given her innate need for normalcy and equanimity. So, for lack of suffering authentic sharing with each other, we chose to get married. Our marriage lasted 26 years, where during the last 11, we were effectively roommates. And quite frankly, if we hadn't had our children and started several businesses together, I doubt if it would have lasted anywhere near that long. Pretense is like a cancer. Once it takes hold within a relationship, it tends to spread and corrupt everything it touches. Initially, it starts out as a hairline crack that, if left unintended, results in the complete crumbling of your beautiful coming together. It also makes it very easy for the ego to ignore the obvious in the hopes that the worst of its fears are not true. True intimacy, the very foundation of any successful long-term relationship, requires giving permission to see each other for who you really are, warts and all. Pretense, by its very definition, precludes this from happening. And people use pretense out of fear of what other people, especially their significant other, may think of them if they allow this to happen. But think about this for a moment. What part of you is fearing this? Your ego or your heart? This suggests a very straightforward but not particularly easy way to avoid pretense once and for all. To lay the foundation for a relationship of true authenticity required me to recognize the distinction between my ego, or false self, and my heart, my true self. Now keep in mind, I'm not saying this duality is true, just that it has been and continues to be a very empowering context through which I view my existence and my relationship. Thanks to this context, I'm able, at least most of the time, to see my fears as existential threats to my ego rather than my timeless self. This makes it possible to be fully open to and present for authentic communication with my life partner and others. Now, does this mean I won't feel pain or the sting of wounding? Of course not. But I would rather be fully aware and feel everything rather than pretend that the pain or fear is not there. This approach also helps with the concern of hurting someone we love by telling them the truth. That fear stems more from how we think they will react and potentially become angry or even abandon us, rather than some noble, altruistic motive. If you want your relationship to grow, blossom, and become only better over time, there really is no room for pretense whatsoever. And once you cross the threshold of insisting on authenticity, you will likely find that your significant relationships, as well as your life in general, just became a lot easier and incredibly more fulfilling.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Extraordinary Intimacy with Michael J. Russell. For all speaking, media interviews, and workshop inquiries, go to michaelrusselllive.com. For private intimacy coaching, send an email to coaching@michaelrusselllive.com.